live stream is starting. Hi, friends. This is Seth Itzkan of Soul for Climate, and we're doing a summary, sort of a recap of Climate Week in New York City, and this was supposed to have started a half an hour ago, and I apologize for being late. We've had technical problems, whatever, and so I think that I'll sort of just run through it now anyway, or at least do a dry run, and then we'll do it again, another time. Maybe I'll even do it again, informally tomorrow as well. And my colleague Carl Tiedemann is on here with me now. But you can also join via Zoom if you want to. And I have the Zoom link in the post. So in the post for this, if you look above, you'll see it says feel free to join via Zoom. You can do that and I'll let you in. But basically, as a lot of you know, I just went through Climate Week in New York City. And and I'm gonna turn off the presentation for a minute. I'll come back to this in a second. But I just did a week of Climate Week in New York, and it was, for the most part, it was great. I mean, I'm really happy I came. I'm inspired by the sessions that I went to. And, that's what's important. What's important is that we meet people who we can get to know and get to love and make changes one person at a time. I mean, Alan Savory talks very clearly about the difference between individuals and institutions. And institutions, are not going to learn or change in a way that will be substantive enough to avert global warming, but individuals can, and maybe new institutions will evolve, or slowly institutions will change. But the point is, when I go to these events, and like when I go to the COPs, the UN climate conferences, I don't go because I think the organizers of those events are going to change anything, or really be sincere or care. I go because I know that there's good people there who are also going, and I want to meet with them, and we're building coalitions. And the fact is, climate change will start to reverse when there are viable alternatives to what's going on now that's making things bad. And in the energy sector, it's just so obvious that the electric cars will replace fossil fuel burning cars when they're just a better deal for the average person, and and it's similar with any innovation. The better innovation just sort of has to win on its own. And it's true in the ag sector as well. People will start doing the regenerative practices when it just makes more sense. And more people are discovering that it just does. Alan Savory didn't invent global holistic management because he cared about global warming. He probably had never even heard of global warming. And it certainly it had nothing to do with meat. And it wasn't even technically about soil in the sense we think of it in terms of like being a store of carbon. It was just to bring back really the above ground biodiversity, just to plant cover and to end the erosion. And so, I sort of see it that way with the regenerative grazing. It's not going to be about climate. It's going to be about land cover and bringing back biodiversity and the wildlife and the million other things, and creating better, healthier food and better animals, stopping erosion, stopping flooding. And yes, there will be carbon credits. There certainly will be, for better or worse. But then there'll be other kinds of credits as well. And there'll be, some of them will be scams, but some will be real. I mean, the ecosystem of different human activities and management systems and accounting systems, the whole thing is slowly evolving. And I just see that it's just going to get better, not worse. The fact that some carbon credit schemes have been abused, that's too bad. And lots of labels have been abused, that's too bad. But some are sincere. And some are doing a good thing and setting a good precedent. And that's really where we want to we just want to focus our energy on that. And I'm meeting people in organizations who the organizations themselves are largely in the hands of big ag and big money, and they may be using those organizations for a certain greenwashing, but there's still good people there trying to do the right thing, and they're being infiltrated by good actors, and that's what we just have to keep doing. So I'll just show a little bit about Climate Week now. First of all, what is Climate Week? And according to the Climate Week website, the Climate Week New York City is the largest annual climate event of its kind, bringing together over 600 events and activities across the city of New York, in person, in hybrid, and online. And share my browser. Now I said I want to share my browser so I can show you around Climate Week. Well, you can just Google Climate Week. I mean, it's an endless list of things going on. The important thing is that it's time to be the same time that that the UN General Assembly is going on. So if you know anything about New York in September, or the United Nations, you know that what was I going to say, that the UN General Assembly is always on like the last 2 weeks of September, and it's just a crazy scene. And I'm sure you've seen the crazy scene. Now, is this not sharing? Hang on a second. Oops. Hang on, let me share the PowerPoint screen with you for a second. Yeah, share browser screen. So, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I will share the browser screen here for a second. New share Chrome. Yeah. Let's go to Chrome. Yeah, so now you can see there's the Climate Week website. And so hundreds of events going on to correspond with the UN General Assembly, and then you go to the events calendar, and you can see how they have them broken up by energy, environmental justice, finance, food, health, heavy industry, nature, policy, sustainable living, transport. I mean, according to them, there's 600 events going on. We were interested in food. There's also finance, and then you just click food, and then you just start to get a list of all the things that are going on related to food. And the way it works is that Climate Week is just like an umbrella. They have their own few sort of official events that are done through the climate group, which organizes Climate Week. But basically, any group or collaborative can have events or multiple events. And they all just get registered through this Climate Week website. And that's basically what's going on, is just hundreds of events that are registered in this Climate Week all over the city. This isn't like a single conference where you go to with booths. The entire city becomes like a conference with events all over the place. And then different groups may have multiple events. And then they have like their own sort of mini conferences. And everything is free. And you just, they want you to register. And so, we have many colleagues like Danielle Nierenberg at Food Tank. She had dozens of events going on, with Food Tank and various partners, and a lot of them were great on food, and a lot of our colleagues were there. There's a group called Regen House, and they're a collaborative of EIT Food, which is the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, and their food division, and something called How Good, which is a company that is looking at metrics in the food industry. And they're looking at metrics which can apply to sustainability. And they created something called Regen House, which is dozens of other events going on. And that's just in the food space. There was some stuff in finance that I went to as well that I thought was pretty interesting. And I'll tell you more about that. So let's see if anyone is watching, and feel free to ask questions here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, and I'll just sort of give you an overview of the presentation, and then I'll get into it in more detail at another time. But basically, I'll even just let you see all the slides here. I went to four events, and just quickly, one was called the Fed's Race Against Climate Inaction. And this would clearly be on the finance side of things. And I have some friends and colleagues with a group called Climate and Capital Media. These people here, they were one of the sponsors of this event. And I thought it was pretty good. These were the speakers. Some pretty good speakers here. This guy, Ralph Chammy, I hadn't heard of him before, but I thought he was great. He's the CEO and co-founder of Blue Green Futures. So again, this is under finance, this is the finance side of things. And we can't get around the fact that finance is going to be part of this. Like, you can't just think that big money is going to go away. It's obviously not just going to go away. And the question is, who are the people on the perimeter there that are trying to get ecological accounting of some sort, into the big finance world? And you can say, oh, well, it's greenwashing. Well, maybe some of it is. But some of it is not. Some of it's trying to do the right thing. And I think those are the kind of people who come to these events. Then this guy, Stephen Rothenstein, founding director at Ceres Incorporated Accelerator for Sustainable Capital Markets. I thought he was very good. Now, Vinod Thomas, check this guy out, former Director General of the World Bank and ADB and author Risk and Resilience in an Era of Change. So I thought he was pretty good as well. I mean, you go to these events and you learn things, and then they learn about you. And at the end of the day, where I think the regenerative grazing and regenerative agriculture is really going to work, like the bottom line that big ag and big money is going to pay to, is risk reduction. Risk reduction is an important thing, in fiscal planning. And, sustainability, what the hell does that mean in soil? They don't care. Those words don't mean anything. But risk reduction means something. And that's the kind of the language. And one of the speakers said something like, if anything, sustainability can raise their stock price by 1%, it's worth it. It's worth it. So if there's that connection somehow through a million different decisions where something sustainability ends up in the stock price going up, even 1%, and you've earned it. You've earned whatever the investment was. So, at the end of the day, this is the kind of conversation we need to have if we want big money at the level of, Fed fiscal policy. And so here's just an example from the panel. Another speaker said, and I don't remember who, I have it written down somewhere, but oh God, what was it? It was a good one. 1% livestock. Oh God, there was a good one. Well, on the livestock side, he said just how many livestock just are dying from, or even just dying, like globally, that never even get to market. And I forget that statistic, but it's a huge percentage. And so there were two arguments. I heard them both. One was to say, well, when you have better grazing and better forage, better soil, you have healthier animals, less get sick, less don't get to market. And you see, when that becomes a a quantifiable statistic. When you can tell the risk managers, if you do this type of grazing, the percentage of animals that go to market will increase. They'll be like, oh, okay. You see what I'm saying? That's what clicks to them. So I'm glad I go to these sessions. And then this guy, Ralph Chammy, said, if I'm in the global south and I see carbon trading in the global north for $100 a ton, and I'm getting $2 a ton, how do you think I feel? So he was arguing, he says the fiscal policy, there has to be a set price for carbon. Can't be negotiated to a bottom line where the less powerful players in the global south are going to get ripped off. All right. So this guy was from Blue Green Futures. I thought he was great. I really liked him. And he mentioned soil. So he was the only guy in the finance panel that mentioned soil. So we hit it off, and I gave him a sulfur climate hat. What else would you expect to happen? So we've made an ally. And we've made an ally because I went to that panel. And that's what we have to do. We need to be going to we need to be there. There's a saying, you go to war, sort of a bad saying, but the notion is you go to war with the army you have, or you find the army with the people who show up. And these are the people who are showing up. He showed up. I showed up. So let's move on. Then more stuff along sort of our dimension, if you will, the food tank stuff. Daniel Nirenberg, what a powerhouse she is. She had dozens, that's not an exaggeration, dozens of fast panels over multiple days. And a lot of them were great. And including this panel called Restaurants and Farms, the Key Solution to the Climate Crisis. And that was a whole day thing, multiple fast panels. But, one of those fast panels, oh my God, this is just a list of everybody. Oh my God. All right, anyway, moving on. And then she was streaming onto YouTube in real time. So it's all there. Look, this is an 8-hour stream. Oh no, wait, no, that's an 8-minute stream just for this one. But where's that 8 hours? Yeah, that's 8 hours. That's an 8-hour stream on YouTube, and you can go and you can see all of it. And I think it's great. I think she's amazing what she does. But then within that, there was one of the fast panels was called Nourishing the Future, Charting the Path to Baku, Bellum, and Beyond with a Partnership in the Future Economy Forum. Okay. These things, they all have these fairly laborious names, but there on the panel is Hunter Levens. And Hunter Levens is a huge fan of sulfur climate, and we're a big fan of hers, and she's a fan of ours, and she's a fan of the savory work, and she promotes the savory work, and she promotes us. There's the panel. There's Hunter on the right. There's Daniel Nirenberg. This was a full room. And then, here's a quote from Hunter from there. Industrial agriculture is a driver of the climate crisis, period. Regenerative agriculture is the answer. And then she just goes on about regenerative grazing and holistic plant grazing. And she even gives a shout out to me, and it's all for climate. It's all there in her, in her presentation, which you can see. Um, and what else? And then there was an event that Sulfur Climate was a co-sponsor of. It was called Pastures of Plenty, Sustainable Livestock Solutions for Climate, Nature, and People. And again, this is good. This is the right narrative. Livestock can be part of the climate solution, when we're doing it the right way. Sulfur Climate was a co-sponsor, well, co-host of this event. And you can see our logo down there, right, with the Nature Conservancy and USAID and WWF and 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 a lot of other great groups, including BirdLife International. I hadn't heard of them before, but they're like the international version of the Audubon Society. And that's really great when you get the birdies and you get the people who love birds, standing with the ranchers. That's good. That's really good. That's really what you want. And so our colleague Russ Concert, who runs Blue Nest Beef, they're certified with the Conservation Ranching Program that the Audubon Society administers. And for grazing in a way that helps ground nesting birds. And then so BirdLife International, they're sort of like the international version of the Audubon Society. So it's great to have them and then with Heifer and ILRI, International Livestock Research Institute, and then there's Sulfur Climate. So, very, very proud of this affiliation and of the work that Sulfur Climate, has been doing to get these types of affiliations now. And then the moderator of that panel was Gerson Freitas Jr. With Bloomberg. And this welcoming statements from Shirley Tarawali. She's the Assistant Director General at the International Livestock Research Institute and the chair of the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock. The keynote with Mario Herrera, professor in the Cornell Cowles Department of Global Development and director of Food Systems and Global Change. Very, very well-known scholar in this space. And then there were two panels. One was called Livestock Solutions Within Climate and Food System Crisis, and the other panel was on financing, climate financing for livestock solutions. Within panel one, this guy Carlos Tabora of Heifer International in Honduras, he was great. I try to find at least one thing that I love from all these panels. There's me kind of pointing to the screen for that panel. There we are, getting ready for it to start. There's Shirley Tarawali from ILRI, and the Sustainable Livestock Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock. There's Mario as the keynote speaker. And you made an interesting point that, there's this argument in academic circles going around that we need to do more with less. We can get more production from the same number of livestock. And then the production now, for production to go up, it necessarily means more livestock. And there's a narrative they're trying to say, well, production can go up without necessarily the number of livestock going up. And then he was talking about, maybe he might have been the one that was talking about all the livestock that never even get to market. And then the need for better vaccines, and huge percentage of them that aren't vaccinated. So, there is definitely a big pharma push in this, saying, look, we need to get these animals vaccinated. And we could have a big discussion about that. Um, you might say, well, yeah, because they're in CAFOs. And when they're in CAFOs, they're in these unnatural situations and they get sick. Maybe that's what it is. And and he didn't address that. He didn't address the percentage of animals that don't get to market in the industrial system versus the regenerative system. And I would assume that they just don't have the metrics on the regenerative systems yet because they're so small. There's so little data compared to the tens of millions of animals that they have data for hundreds of millions. It's close to 1 billion or more, multiple billions once you start talking about chickens. So there's just so much more data on those systems. So we have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go before we're getting good data on the regenerative systems. And then what you want to look at is there less disease? Is there more percentage going to market? Again, and then this is where we get back to the finance people, reduction of risk. If you can show there's less sickness, less number of animals, as a percentage at any rate, that aren't getting to market. That's the interface with finance. You see, this is our conundrum, if you will, but it's the reality. You have nature and you have the producers. And then you have the markets. And then you have the financiers of the markets and of the infrastructure, so the pharmacies, the distribution channels, verification, all of that. Verification is a big part of this. Oh, and then not just verifying the animal, but then verifying the soil. I mean, it just, and then there's more and more players, involved in trying to broker these relationships. But that's just the reality. And the more we're in the game, the more we'll see change. And if you think that just being out of the game and just selling at farmers markets or mail order, that's great, and that absolutely has to happen. But that's not going to change the global food system, not on its own. But getting data on those systems and showing up at meetings like this with the data and making a financial correlation to that data in terms of reduction of risk and everything else. That's where change starts to happen. And then change for, the consumers. So they know to buy, pay even a little extra for the better product and to trust that it really is better. All right. Well, oh my God, I don't even want to tell you about this slide. So I think I'm going to wrap up there, and we will come back to this later. If you have any questions, please ask them in Facebook, or DM to me. What I can say is that the very, very last panel, I absolutely loved everything about it. Weaving a regenerative enterprise ecosystem. Woohoo. All good people, the Regen Network, Regen Foundation, the Bio-Fi project with Samantha Power. Boy, what a powerhouse she was. Terragenesis, Tim Tenson, Verify, Charles Darling, and of course, Greg Landau, a friend of Soul for Climate, co-founder and CEO of Regen Network. Just great people doing great stuff, trying to get carbon credits done right, ecological restoration credits, verification of a variety of different metrics. Companies like Verify, which does the verification of metrics, and then Samantha Power. She used to work at the World Bank. Now she started her own company to do bioregional financing at the bioregional level. She's great. I think these people are doing really good work. This was a good panel to be part of. Glad I was there. This is a more long hair type. No one was wearing a suit. I was wearing a suit. I was the only one wearing a suit, and I was a participant. And there's with Gregory Landau, CEO, founder of Regen Networks. Just great person doing great work. Then, of course, there's the after party. And on the Lower East Side, Chinatown, Hester Street area. And then, of course, there's a burger place called Holy Cow. I sort of doubt that they're just selling Regen beef there, but they could be soon, and it was nice to see that right there, that restaurant, Holy Cow. So anyway, I'll stop the share. That's a little bit of a summary of Climate Week for y'all. And and what did I want to say? Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for doing everything you're doing. And I think I'm just going to pick this up again tomorrow. Okay, love you. Take care.